Hello. It is very hot today here, and so I am grateful for a number of things, but right now primarily for the fan that's blowing on me not making any kind of noise trouble with the computer microphone. I have very basic technology here that I do this with, and also that the fairy tale that I read for tomorrow's video only took me a minute to read. I read it 3 times so that I could fix a couple of things, and but it took me a minute each time. In fact, the first time I don't even think I read it all the way through, so it took me 2 minutes and 15 seconds. But that's not what this video is. But tomorrow check that one out. It's only a minute long. But anyway, I finished season 1 of the original Magic School Bus cartoon, and ideally I would have gone on to season 2, but it is not available to me at this time. So instead, I wanted to just look at a little bit, 2 episodes of the Magic School Bus Rides Again, which is the Rebooquel on Netflix. It's kind of similar to after I watched the Land of the Lost. I watched a couple episodes of the '70s version, and I did ultimately end up watching the 2009 movie. But this I've been curious about, but also, since I'm in my 30s, not curious enough about. I mean, watching the old one, that's nostalgic. That's reliving childhood. But the new one is just kind of living childhood, and I'm not a child anymore. And I suppose if I were a child, I would be really into it, because some of the things that I found that I didn't love were purely aesthetic, but also kind of reminded me of other things that children are fed through their eyes these days. Like I subscribe to a couple of YouTube channels dedicated to keeping certain franchises alive. I am subscribed to the official Care Bears YouTube channel, and so I don't watch a lot of it, but I see some of the new clips of the new animated, the way that they're animated now. I just subscribed to the official Power Rangers YouTube page, and I get a little bit, and that's not a cartoon, but I think same basic principles as far as the look of things. And so mostly the comparison that I drew with the new Magic School Bus cartoon is that it looks like the Care Bears animation. And from what I've seen even of the Marvel What If on Disney Plus, I haven't watched any of it, but I've seen advertisements and stills, and it looks kind of like that too, the way the style of animation. And to me, it looks farther away from natural, in a similar way to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, the very first feature-length Disney movie. It looked like they were painting each individual leaf on bushes in that movie, and in something like Bambi, whereas trees were less defined in 90s Disney movies, or 80s and 70s as well. But that's maybe what kids like to look at these days. I don't know. So I tried to look past that, those aspects of it. And the very first thing, naturally, that I experienced from this was the theme song. And at first I thought, oh, they just kind of remixed the original, because it sounded like Little Richard a little bit, but just slightly off, and it definitely was different music. And then I thought, no, that's not the original version. That's not Little Richard, but I do know that voice. Who is that? And I'm pretty sure that I came to the conclusion that it was Lin-Manuel Miranda before I looked it up and found out for sure that it was Lin-Manuel Miranda. Now, I know that Lin-Manuel Miranda is a genius. I would know that even if he didn't get that grant that said he was a genius. But I don't automatically fawn over every single thing that he does. So the fact that I am fawning over his version of the Magic School Bus song is actually has some meaning. I really loved it. It was close enough to be an homage to the original style, but also it was very much him, and I would listen to it over and over again. So there's that. And then there were the episodes. I watched Frizzle of the Future and Pigs in the Wind, which are the very first few episodes. And I won't go I will try not to go beat by beat plot wise and do more general things, takeaways from the thing, and then I'll talk a little bit about the books. I just don't want to do this for too long because, again, it is very, very hot. But a couple of things. So I remember when it was first announced that we were going to do this and that Kate McKinnon was going to play Ms. Frizzle, they did not say that she was going to play Ms. Fiona Frizzle. Fiona, other names, middle names, Frizzle, the little sister of Ms. Valerie Frizzle, who is the Lily Tomlin character. So Lily Tomlin's Ms. Frizzle is in the show a little bit, at least in the episodes that I watched. She did the post-action phone call segments, which is if you're going to do that, have her still be there, but not the Ms. Frizzle. That's a way to do it. And let's see, the first one was just it was just a continuation of the episode. Arnold called her just to say that he was just to check in on a couple of things about natural boundaries. It was about ecosystems and invasive species and all that. It was very interesting. And then he said that he has a pig audition, which is a hint at the next episode, which is a play about them putting on a play based on the Three Little Pigs. I did not, perhaps in part due to the fact that I didn't watch the third episode, I didn't pick up on that kind of thing in the post-show phone call with the second episode, which did seem to be a kid not connected to it's Walkerville elementary class, asking other questions, and so it didn't seem to drop a hint for the next episode. So, but it did have a new kind of, in the old version, it showed the globe and kind of zoomed in, showed lights in various parts of the world, every kids in every country trying to contact the Magic School Bus and ask questions. And so the first episode, of course, didn't have that because it was Arnold. It was directly after the action of the episode. But the second episode had a version of that where it zoomed in from outer space all the way into a microchip in a computer. And so it zoomed into the internet, and then we have images from the internet and people using the internet to try to get in touch with the Magic School Bus. That was an interesting update. And I'll just do a little bit about the bus. In the first two episodes, at least, the bus doesn't really transform into anything. It transports, like it goes from one place to another. Doesn't turn into a plane to do this, or a race car or a rocket ship or anything. It just teleports, which I guess the bus could do that, but it's more interesting if it travels, in my opinion. Also, and this is partly because of the animation for the outside of the bus, but the inside of the bus had kind of blue neon lights along the ceiling on both sides of the bus. Even Arnold complained that his seat was different. And Arnold is kind of Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory in the first episode, at least. And then he kind of settles in and is actually not very Arnold at all. He just goes along with. He doesn't say I should have stayed home today. But I'll have something mentioned about that too. It looked like a futuristic. The bus looked futuristic, which again might be an animation thing. But the magic of the bus, the fact that it can turn into things, I feel like that's a little bit more magical if it looks like an old beaten down bus, like an old style school bus that's been around since the 50s or however long. Also, they have so much other updated tech beyond what we have today. Like their iPads look like something out of a Star Trek movie made today. So not like the Star Trek movies that inspired the iPads, but Star Trek movies being made now that are trying to inspire the next generation of iPads. And maybe Elon Musk has some of this tech, but the advanced technology that they seem to have in the classroom kind of made the bus again less special. But I've only watched 2 episodes, and also this is not for me. This is just me investigating. So there's there's that. And then they so the Kate McKinnon, Ms. Frizzle, comes in, and I love Kate McKinnon. She's it's tied her and Kenan Thompson on Saturday Night Live for my favorite cast members, and then uh, one whose name is not jumping to mind, Cecily Strong. I was going to call her Chloe, but Cecily Strong she's up there too. But I love Kate McKinnon in Saturday Night Live, and she's good as Miss Frizzle. I'm just not necessarily a fan of what they do with Miss Frizzle. So the reason that Fiona Frizzle is taking over from Valerie Frizzle is that Valerie Frizzle has gotten her PhD and wants to be called now Professor Frizzle. Except she doesn't seem to be working at a college, and she doesn't seem to be teaching college students. So why not Dr. Frizzle, because she's got the PhD, but she's apparently going to be doing a lot of field work. So Dr. Frizzle, Professor, I feel like you got to be teaching in order to be called Professor, but you can be called Doctor if you have a PhD. So that was confusing, because the way that she describes what her life is going to be going forward, it sounds like she's going to be Star Trek, like she's going to go, and we see her exploring under the sea with her magic motorcycle in these first few episodes, and then skydiving in another one, presumably learning something in both of these situations. But she describes sounds like space travel and exploring planets and the universe, which again can be something that a PhD Dr. Frizzle would do, but without students, it seems like she shouldn't be called Professor. Which also kind of, for me, felt like this is a person who has a magic vehicle in the original series. She's got a magic vehicle. She is using it to teach kids. She could use the magic vehicle to do anything. She chose to be a teacher. So if she would choose she would choose not to be a teacher anymore, especially with this group of kids, it seems to go against the idea of being a teacher, or how teach. And I'm not a teacher, but I know teachers. It seems to go against the character. So I guess I'll probably learn one day. I'll look up, do a little research, or read the behind the scenes or whatever. I say that about every show that I look back at, and so far I haven't really that much. Actually, I have. But just why they made the decision to not only, cast someone new as Ms. Frizzle, but make it the same character. Don't have two Ms. Frizzles, and then one of them not necessarily jive with the original. But again, it seems to work for the people it's designed for. They also eliminated the character of Phoebe, but this is a continuation, so she does exist in the world. They just had her go back to her old school, and now they have a new character, Jodie. And I only watched 2 episodes, so I'm not going to say that there's nothing to the character other than her willingness to fight Audrey 2 in hand-to-hand combat, but I didn't get much of a sense of her the way that I feel like I got more of a sense of all the students in the first couple of episodes of the original series. And even these versions of the students in this new series, I mentioned Arnold doesn't seem to say that he should have stayed home today. Fiona Frizzle says that for him, and when she arrives and she's going around, it's not getting to know you from The King and I, where the teacher sits down and says, I want to get to know all the students. She already knows their catchphrases. She says their catchphrases to them, or describes them to themselves, like as though she already knows them, which probably she does. She's talked about them with her sister, I'm guessing. But that it seems to take the personalities out of the kids from the original series. And again, maybe they're trying to go in new directions, and so this is like a fresh start, but then why do it at all? Even before that, Arnold was kind of narrating for Jodie, who's the new kid in class. Also, Phoebe, why would she go back to the old school? Like, I know that she liked that teacher from the plant episode, but she's at the Magic School Bus school. Why? And these seem to be public schools, so probably money wasn't an issue. why would she go back? Why would she leave that classroom? And why did the writers feel like they needed to eliminate her? They could just add a new student. There'll be 9 students instead of 8. It doesn't. It's kind of like Ms. Frizzle giving up teaching and calling herself professor even though she's not teaching anymore. It doesn't really make sense to me. Um, but where was I? Arnold is kind of narrating for her, and he also, like, similar to Fiona Frizzle saying all their catchphrases to them. He seems to be saying, and this is the role that this student plays in our dynamic, and this is the role that this student plays in our dynamic, and this is the role that I play. Except they don't seem to have those same roles anymore. But again, I only watched 2 episodes, and I won't probably be watching many more. So all of that said, and you know, Kate McKinnon's version is very much a Kate McKinnon character, but again, it doesn't really go with the older Ms. Frizzle kind of stood back and let the kids discover things for themselves and then summarized, whereas the Kate McKinnon version seems to be more in their face at all times, which sometimes is of an ilk with the original version, and sometimes is a little superfluous. It kind of reminded me of if Kristen Wiig played the character. And so it seemed like Kate McKinnon kind of doing Kristen Wiig doing Ms. Frizzle. And just to mention it, Will Arnett has a cameo voice role in the first episode as Galapagos Gill and Galapagos Gill Jr. So this show has its own celebrity voice cameos as well. But I will just give a brief rundowns of the episodes that I watched. First one, like I said, is about ecosystems and invasive species. And interesting thing, not covered in the original, at least in season 1 of the original. And I would guess that that's probably what they would go for, is not rehashing the original. And so it was very interesting. Invasive species are, of course, species that don't belong in a given habitat and can cause problems. It's why when Johnny Depp and Amber Heard tried to bring their dogs to Australia for when he was doing one of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and Australia got very angry and they had to record a apology video. So that's because they didn't want these dogs that are not indigenous to Australia, getting out and interbreeding with their species and causing trouble. It probably wouldn't have been that much trouble, but it's just not allowed. And so they use the Galapagos Islands, where they meet Galapagos Gill, a friend of Fiona Frizzle's, and they learn about the animals there and how they all interact. And they have special goggles that show what animals eat what animals, which is, they always have special goggles. They have special goggles in the Pig in the Wind episode that show how the wind behaves differently with different parts of the buildings. So they learn about this, and the major conflict arises because Arnold, again, he's Sheldon Cooper in this. He doesn't like the change that's happening. That he seems to have gotten comfortable. Again, he doesn't say I should have stayed home today. He seems to have gotten comfortable with the old Ms. Frizzle, and so he doesn't like that there's going to be a new one. And when new Ms. Frizzle puts her magical potted plant, where the old Ms. Frizzle's mug should go, the mug that the class made for her, Arnold steals the plant, takes it to the Galapagos Islands, and in an attempt to make Fiona Frizzle not feel at home in that classroom, I guess, he leaves it in the Galapagos. He puts it on a turtle, and then it slides off of the turtle, and the pot shatters, and we see the plant immediately gets much bigger. And when they travel into the future, I forget why they travel into the future, but they travel 30 years into the future, and junior versions of every single one of the kids are in the class. They hear someone doing a report on the Galapagos disaster, and then they go to the Galapagos in the future and see that plant has taken over because it's a plant that doesn't exist in real life, which I know that they did the plant that doesn't exist in real life in the plant episode that I talked about, but at least that was, based in reality, whereas this plant is Audrey 2, and it doesn't seem like you get the same educational value from that. But again, It's not for me. Uh, and so that plant exploded, and they then brought in rabbits to deal with it, but then the rabbit population exploded, and that is invasive species at work, ruining the ecosystem of the Galapagos. So they have to go back and they have to go back in time and fix that, get the plant back. This is where Jody um, just jumps right in and jump kicks the plant and starts fighting it, and then all the other students come in. It's already attacking Arnold, the plant is, and she just jump kicks it, and that is her first character-defining action, and she's probably pretty interesting. Phoebe certainly wouldn't have done that, so that's my the introduction to that character, and yeah, so. The metaphor is that Arnold has to deal with the invasive species because I forget where again this conversation comes up, but someone mentions that bumblebees were at one point or honeybees were at one point an invasive species in North America, but the ecosystem balanced out. Sometimes the ecosystem can do that, and so that is the metaphor with Fiona Frizzle. She is new to the ecosystem, but an invasive species, but the ecosystem can balance out, and that's over the course of the next episode and I guess further episodes. Just briefly, Pigs in the Wind, Keisha is once again in the director's seat, but this time she's directing a play. And Arnold's cousin Janet returns as an apparently very powerful theater blogger critic who Keisha is afraid that Janet is going to give her a bad review. Janet comes in and destroys the fake brick set. She says the bricks aren't good enough. I'm not going to give this a good review, which that is a thing that happens when there's a theater critic character who's a villain. The critic does come to a rehearsal or something and say, "You've got a problem. I'm not going to give this a good review." I doubt that happens much in real life. It's not happened in my experience in theater, but it has to happen in order to set the kids. And also, they're not going to build a real. They're middle schoolers. They're not going to, or even they're elementary schoolers. They're not going to use real bricks to build their set, except they do by the end of the episode. It's going to be a fake brick set. Of course it is. And also another thing that just not in my experience in grade school theater, I don't think we were ever afraid of getting a bad review because one, we weren't even thinking about getting reviews. There was a write-up in the newsletter, the school newsletter, that it happened and this is how it happened, but it wasn't. It's not and it's typically complimentary, but we weren't worried that bad reviews were going to sink the show. It was only a couple performances, and the tickets were all going to be purchased by our parents. But that is another thing that is motivating the thing. So they have to go first. The bus teleports to, I think it's Washington or Oregon, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. And here's where they learn about not really architecture, but stabilization. It's kind of a forces episode and wind blowing things over. I forget the terminology that might have put it in a nutshell. But basically, they have to learn how to make a brick structure for their set that will not blow down. I don't know why it has to not blow down, because they don't necessarily need powerful, but this is the Magic School Bus theater production, so whatever. So first they build with just bricks, and it collapses with a little bit of wind because they don't have any adhesive. And the bus has a brick printing machine, but again, the bus doesn't turn into anything, it just extends a little arm and 3D prints bricks out of nothing. And someone says, it's magic. And then the bus does mortar the same way, magic mortar, that apparently dries and hardens very quickly. And so when the first thing falls down, they put the mortar in, and then the bus starts tossing slats to them so they can put a roof on it. And then that blows down too, because the bus exerts wind on it. And that's where the goggles, they put the goggles on that shows how the wind moves, and the wind viciously attacks the roof, and then once the roof is gone, it's able to viciously attack the tower itself, and that gets blown down as well. So interesting things are being taught. It's just the style didn't necessarily, but go with me. But interesting things are being taught. So they all get back on the bus. They're kind of dejected. They're giving up. Keisha's trying to rally them, but she's also doing the my way or the highway director thing that you see in stuff like this. And she pushes a button that is supposed to make the bus stop taking them back home, but instead it makes the bus turn them all into trees and then turn into a tree itself. And she gets worried that, oh, their trees are going to be blown over by the wind because there's a lot of wind in this particular part of the country up on this mountainside. But then the wind doesn't blow them down. They learn that because the way the trees grow kind of rounded, that affects how the wind blows them. Also, they have a network of roots, and they are all attached to each other by the roots, and that helps. Which also means that when they go back to the amphitheater just outside of the elementary school, in order to build their tower set, they dig into the stage. The bus turns into an earth mover and digs into the stage. It's a weird way to depict theater productions. And then the production on the bus provides wind effects, but it's okay because it can provide powerful wind effects and the thing won't fall. Janet is in the audience, and the wind is so powerful that she runs up onto the stage to get into the tower because she can see that the tower is not being affected by the wind. And then she gives it a bad review, but she says all the good things about it, and they sell out anyway. And then there's the post-show thing, and they address skyscrapers, and Ms. Frizzle says, well, skyscrapers, the very tallest of them, have kind of pendulum-like structures inside that help with the wind because they are at risk of falling over. So that's those two episodes. They didn't make me want to watch any more of them, although maybe I'll put one on now and again. We'll see. Never say never. And just a little bit about the books before I get to a half hour here. I remember, I think I've mentioned the ocean book and how I spotted that diagram of the ocean floor was borrowed by my second grade teacher for a diagram for us students to fill in. So I've got that one. I've got the dinosaur one. I thought that the Magic School Bus, the original book series, not the television tie-ins. I remember seeing some of those, and that is my first, in my head, the first incidence of my seeing a tie-in product that felt like just a cash grab thing, and I was very not into the Magic School Bus book series where they looked like the cartoon characters from the animated series. Recently, when I went back and read one of the Magic School Bus, the original books, I was surprised that I didn't recognize any of the kids, or many of the kids, and that there were a ton more kids. I think there are 19 kids in the class in that. But I got the dinosaur one, I've got the stomach one, and I've got the outer space one, and I didn't realize that I thought they were all like 80s books, and that they were all done. And now it was the 90s. They were doing the TV show. They were doing the tie-in books for the TV show. But no, the original author, Joanna Cole, and the illustrator Bruce Deegan, they kept making the books up until I think the last one was 2010. And there was apparently one came out last year. The Magic School Bus Explores Human Evolution. And the 2010 one was climate change, or climate challenge, but about climate change. Science Fair Expedition in 2006, Explores the Senses in 2001, Electric Field Trip, Beehive, Hurricane. Those were all post in the time of the dinosaurs. And the Solar System one was 1992, fairly early. But I'll have to look for that Human Evolution one. But it was they're just interesting things, not as aesthetically easy as the animated show. I've mentioned a couple of times, and it's not in every episode, but they would do in the animated show this. Suddenly the screen becomes yellow lined paper, and they're doing some kind of summation of what's been learned with a diagram and all that. And they kind of had that off to the side on the pages as we're getting the narrative of those books. Um, and they're interesting looking books. I I try not to say I want to collect all of as often as I once did, but they're also slim little books, so I might try to collect all the Magic School Bus original series books, um, over the course of years, going to uh, book sales and secondhand shops, etc. It won't be a priority, but since they're small and since there's only 13 of them, I might go for it. So that's going to wrap it up for the Magic School Bus. I think that what I'm going to do is I'm going to do at least a week of just scattered random things, in addition to reading stories to the internet. But then I'm going to start early on Are You Afraid of the Dark? I might eat these words, depending, but there are a lot of episodes of Are You Afraid of the Dark. I was going to try to cram them all into the month of October, but I think spreading them out from late August to early December is the way to go. 2 at a time, 4 per week, except I might have to skip one Monday version of this because I'll be at a wedding that Sunday, assuming the Delta variant doesn't cancel the wedding. Yeah, so that's the plan going forward, one of the plans going forward. And maybe and eventually, hopefully, I'll get back to the original Magic School Bus series, and then maybe I'll watch another couple of episodes of the reboot. I don't know, never know, but I haven't sweated too much through this video, so that's good. And there's a 1-minute fairy tale video tomorrow, so if you've made it this far, you can give me another minute. But whatever. While I'm saying stuff like that, I might as well say like and subscribe. I don't usually, but like and subscribe and spread the word. And I've gone way too far with this, which is why seatbelts, everyone.